You know, airplanes are a fun way to get where you're going, and usually they're a pretty fast way too. But sometimes in crowded airspace, you have to enter a holding pattern. Now, flying a holding pattern isn't all that difficult, but pilots sometimes do get confused about how to enter one. So let's say you and I are flying east on Victor 208, about to reach Julian Vortex, on a heading of 075 due to a wind from the northwest, and ATC says to you, November 359er Echo Sierra, hold northeast of Julian on the 007 radial, right turns, expect further clearance at 1745, time now 1733. Well, that means we'll do about 12 minutes of holding. Now, the problem we're immediately faced with is, where am I going to hold, and how am I going to get into that holding pattern? Now, here's where a good old pencil will come in handy. Now, since the holding pattern is not shown on the chart, I'll just draw it myself. Now remember, when the controller gives you holding instructions and says directions like northeast, the controller is telling you where the inbound leg of the holding pattern is located, not where the racetrack pattern will be. Now, as you know, the 007-degree radial of the Julian Vortex extends north and slightly east. So what the controller is telling me is that the inbound leg of the holding pattern will be on that radial. All right, I've got it. The inbound leg will be on the Julian 007, and when I get to Julian on that leg, I'll make right turns. Now, the big question is, how do I set up my entry into the holding pattern? Now, you remember there are three ways to enter a holding pattern. You can enter directly, or you can make a right or left turn to stay in a protected area. Now, for a standard holding pattern, if you have to make a right turn, it's a teardrop entry. If, on the other hand, you have to make a left turn, it's a parallel entry. Now, in this case, I can't enter directly, and I'll have to make a left turn to stay in the protected area. So it's a parallel entry. That means when I cross the fix, I'll turn left and fly the reciprocal of the inbound course, which is 187. If there were no wind, then I'd fly an outbound heading of 007. Now, I am forecast to have a wind of about 25 knots from the northwest, so I'll set up a crab of about 5 degrees to the left by taking a heading of about 002 degrees. Okay, here's Julian. I'll start my time and turn left to a heading of 002. Okay, there's 1 minute. Now I want to turn around and intercept the inbound course of 187 at a 30-degree angle. Now, in a no-wind situation, I do that on a heading of about 157. But with this wind, I'll make a 5-degree wind correction angle for a heading of 162. Now, I'll set the OBS to 187. Okay, and there comes the radial. So now I'll turn right to a heading of 192 to set up a 5-degree wind correction angle. Okay, I seem to be tracking the radial just fine with very small corrections, so I must have just about the right crab angle. There's the station, so I'll start my right turn for the outbound leg. Now, as you remember, when you're flying outbound, you should double your inbound wind correction angle. That means I'll set up about a 10-degree crab to the left for my outbound leg, so my heading will be 357. Okay, I'm passing a beam of the station now on my outbound leg, so I'll start my time. Since I have a headwind component, I'll go for about 1 minute and 15 seconds to see if I can get the inbound leg to come out to exactly 1 minute. Okay, there's my minute 15, so I'll start my turn inbound now. Okay, the radial is just beginning to come in, so I'll adjust my timing and rate of roll out of this turn based on how fast that CDI moves. All right, my wings are level, so I'll start my time. There's the fix. Hey, that worked out just great. Just about exactly 1 minute, too. You know, everything worked out just fine that time, so I'll fly 1:15 outbound again. And on the inbound leg, that crab angle worked just fine, so I'll fly a heading of 192 again on that. Well, so by now, you've got holding at a VOR all figured out. So next, let's see what holding at an NDB is like. Now, let's say you're flying on Victor 64 here, you're westbound, you're en route to Hemet Airport, and when you get to Hemet, you intend to shoot an NDB approach. Now, just about the time you get here to Hemet intersection, ATC says, November 359er Echo Sierra, there will be a delay for your approach to Hemet. Proceed directly to San Jacinto NDB and hold on the 153 bearing to the station, right turns. Expect further clearance at 2031, time now 2010. Well, you can see we have about 21 minutes of holding ahead of us, so my first job here is to start heading directly to San Jacinto NDB. I'll tune in the NDB here and identify the station. And once again, since an ADF doesn't have an off flag, I'll leave the audio for the ADF in my headset so I can hear it and verify that I'm still receiving the signal. Now, the needle says that the station is about 40 degrees to the right, so I'll turn to about 300 degrees. Okay, I'll rotate the ADF card here so it agrees with my heading, and I'll continue to make little corrections towards the needle to track to the station. Now, to figure out how I'm going to hold. The directions say to hold on the 153 bearing to the station. Now, I can see that would line me up nicely for the approach, so there is logic to what the controller is asking for here. Now, in this case, I can't make a direct entry, and I'll have to turn right to stay in the protected area, so I'll do a teardrop entry. Now, the outbound bearing would be 333 degrees. So when I get to the station, I'll turn 30 degrees short of that for a heading of 303 degrees. Okay, there's the station, so I'll fine-tune my heading to a heading of 303 degrees here. Okay, it's just now been 1 minute, so I'm going to turn to the right 180 degrees to a heading of 123 degrees. That'll have me intercept that 153 degree bearing at a 30 degree angle. And while I'm doing that, I'll go ahead and rotate my ADF card to 123 degrees so it'll match my heading when I get there. Okay, we're coming up on that 153 degree bearing now. So I'll turn right to a heading of 153 degrees. And I'll go ahead and rotate my ADF card so it'll read right, 153. There seems to be just a little wind from the right, so I'll turn toward the needle to set up a little tiny correction here. Adjust my ADF card. Okay, there's the station, so I'll start my turn. I had a crab angle of about 5 degrees to the right while we're heading inbound, so I'll set up a crab angle of 10 degrees to the left while we're going outbound here. Okay, I'm abeam the station, so I'll start my time. Well, you can see by now that holding an NDB is pretty much the same as holding anywhere else. You just have to keep rotating that ADF card to match it to your heading, so you have those two agreeing with each other all the time. And of course, by now you also know that you've mastered the very hardest part of holding, and that is how to enter a holding pattern. So if you ever do hear that dreaded H word from ATC, you'll be prepared.